the Facebook. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another exciting and educating edition of the Health and Fitness Show. I'm Fahad, Matin, your host for today, and I hope and pray that all of us are fit by the grace of Almighty Allah. Broadcasting live from the studios of Inspire FM today on 4th of May 2023. And time just past 6 p.m. We're casting our positive vibes to all our lovely people in the surrounding areas of Luton, like Dunstable, Harpin, and Bedford. A positive airway, all our listeners who are listening us through its app and viewing us from Facebook Live, with live chat, and of course our radio waves as well. As I said, it is live today, so I pray that all of us had a nice, lovely bank holiday weekend and another bank holiday weekend. So yeah, it's a very double whammy kind of a situation this week. Then we have a double bank holiday weekend, which is always nice. Resident of Luton, and if you have not voted yet, please today you have time till 10 o'clock. You can go and vote to what you like, but do vote. And if you have not completed your Shawwal fast, you still have times. Yes, we can fast 6 Shawwal fast anytime during the month of Shawwal. Please, I have mine, and there's a few remaining. So inshallah, we will do those soon. As we all know, we definitely cover different health-related topics every single week. So today's topic is slightly different because I don't remember I have done something like this before, and it is a very unique topic in many different ways because most of the parents who have been involved with kids, or are you a parent, or if you are a guardian, or if you are uncle, auntie, or any other, if you have kids in your household, you may have end up seen them know, and you may have end up in A&E with them for some one reason or another. So yes, in that way, we are discussing about the journey Paediatric A&E department. Yes, you have heard me correctly. We are talking about the journey of a pediatric A&E site. Definitely, I'm not the only one who will be talking about this. I have a very lovely of mine worked with in past, and he is a very nice person in many different ways. I always admire him. I always friend, and he is none other than Ben Small. Good evening, Ben.
Good evening, Fahad, and thank you for having me on the show
Today.
I'm good, thank you. Just getting used to the radio environment, a bit different for me, but different to the day job. Had a lovely cycle ride up here this evening, just in time, as you know, and delighted to be on the show to talk about, which is children's emergency care and all emergency care.
Definitely. So you are, if I'm not, you are the matron for the whole A&E department of Bedfordshire, Luton and Hospital, correct?
That's right. Bedfordshire Hospitals now is a big trust. It covers Bedford and Luton. I've got the really privileged position, I believe it's privileged, to be the matron for emergency care on the Luton and Dunstable Hospital side. By being the matron for A&E, I'm a nurse by background, and I cover the adult and the paediatric areas of emergency care. And I have a background in emergency care that stretches back to 2003 when I think I always knew I was going to be an emergency matron, and I spent over 4.5 years managing the children's A&E at Luton prior to my matron post. So delighted to be here with that background and that experience, and to be able to talk about something that I genuinely am so passionate about us getting right.
And I must say, the A&E department itself is very unique. So it's 20 years of you working in there, isn't it?
Yeah, every now and then I leave in case there's view I might prefer, but then I tend to come back. It's like I'm attached to a bungee cord or something. It's an incredible environment, and once you're an A&E nurse, I think you're always an A&E nurse, and that's definitely all about emergency care.
I absolutely agree on that.
Yeah.
I must say, when I was working there, it is a completely different environment. It seems like you are on a adrenaline all the way through when you're working there.
I think so, absolutely. And I've joked with my family in the past that I do things in 4-hour blocks, because for years, of course, we had the 4-hour target, which is actually coming back. And I think same with DIY. I liked things in 4-hour block. I liked it finished within 4 hours, or completed. So, it is a fast pace. It is very different, and your tolerance for waiting on things to happen soon goes. So yeah, definitely a unique place.
So, without further ado, I involve our listeners as well. So, listeners, if you have any questions or query regarding tonight, please give us a call on 01582481822, or you can send your questions by text by 07779. As we have a very lucky guest with us today, Ben Small, who is a matron at the Luton District Hospital department for the whole A&E department, which is a very big and very unique department, I must say. It is a privilege a year back, and it's a very unique experience, to be honest. But let's go to it today, which is the A&E. So, Ben, if I ask you, what is a pediatric A&E? Because when we just mean A&E, you just go to the accident and emergency department. There's only one department. So why there's a pediatric A&E side?
So there wasn't years ago. So when I qualified in 2003, A&E departments were split. They were essentially all one department, and we looked after children and adults. I think any parent listening, and myself and you as well, would know you wouldn't want to take your child into A&E at night, along with adults suffering illnesses and perhaps some behaviours that aren't too desirable at times, and have your child alongside that. We've got to protect them. So a children's A&E is exactly that. We aim to provide a children's environment staffed with children's nurses and doctors trained in children's care to care for children separate to adults. And that's because we're tuned into the developmental needs of children, and it is incredibly different to that of an adult, and it's different throughout the whole range of their age. So we want to afford them that safety and security, and we want to acknowledge that they need that specialist level of care. So children's A&E now is a separate entity to the adult A&E. We staff it separately to make sure that we've got the right staffing for the children there, and it's somewhere that you can feel assured that you can bring your child in an emergency to receive the right care at the right time in the right place. And you mentioned A&E, and I guess I've got to give a nod to how we've changed the title over the years, and it always was A&E, accident and emergency. And then for some reason we went to this trend of calling it the emergency department. But essentially it is that. We are there for emergencies. Obviously there's other healthcare providers and resources available, and we are that emergency provision where life-saving treatment is required.
Indeed, and to be honest, there was a slight joke on that. I went to one of the conferences and I said, "Oh, I'm the service manager for ED," and he was literally looking at my face in a very different way. He says, "Since when we are calling emergency department, A&E department, emergency department, we're not Americans, we're British."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, okay, good. You have not taken the other one."
Yes.
So yeah, it was funny thing. Anyhow, so in the peds, let me say peds because
Peds or paediatric, yeah, and that's what we call it. Peds or children's, yeah, all of that.
So in peds, what age class as the peds or pediatric to be seen in the A&E side?
So we will see children up to the age of 16 in our children's A&E, and there are some local differences depending on areas, so different areas of the country. But we will see the child until they leave school after completing their GCSEs. So it's up to 16, but that also means we see them from 0, basically. Obviously, there's a maternity unit for day 0, and I don't want to take their work away from them for a moment. But unfortunately, children only days old can have health complications and health difficulties, and we're absolutely set up for that level of care as well. So across the board, yeah.
So when we say the trip to A&E, now that is a very unique experience for many different people. Now, people who have said, "Oh, my experience is absolutely horrendous," whereas the other parent may say, "Oh, my experience is absolutely perfect." And I personally, being a parent myself, have few trips as a parent, and I have different experience in every single time. But from the other side of the view, from the person from the medical side of the view, if I ask you to take us on the journey of child arriving in the hospital to see to be passed to the pediatric emergency and then to be triaged and carry on, give us your way of journey of how it's supposed to be done and what's
Yeah.
the best course of action.
Absolutely. So the journey to a child coming to us in the emergency department may have started way before the people even get to our front door. It may have started days before as the child develops illness or injury. And I'm completely aware that parents may have gone through 111 as a healthcare provider over the telephone. They may have accessed their GP, and they may have had a GP face-to-face or a telephone consult. They may have had advice over the counter from a pharmacy. But ultimately, there comes a point where that parent or that older child says, "I need emergency care." And that's the point that you find your way with us. Now, some children, but not many, present by ambulance, and it's fortunate that not many present by ambulance. And probably part of the nature of that is that if you think about a poorly elderly adult, mobility is a big issue, and you can't just pick up and put in the car. Whereas children are inherently small in their carriage, so parents therefore self-convey or drive the child into A&E. So a lot of them come with parents, which means that you'll have tried things at home. You'll have done all of your fantastic parenting to hydrate the child, treat the temperature, treat the pain, use your parental intuition to identify what's right. At some point, your gut will say, something's just not right and I don't know what. And you don't have to know what's wrong with your child. You just have to know, my gut says I'm worried. When you get to us, we have a couple of services on site at the front door. So we have an urgent GP provider on site, which is a no appointment kind of drop-in system. And then we have our emergency care area. So you first of all come to a stream window, and we place at that stream window a senior emergency nurse, and they'll listen to your presenting complaint. And it will be the highlights of the presenting complaint, and they will be able to quickly make a decision of whether you're going to the GP or A&E. The expectations are, and I want to pick up on what you said about experience, because every person's experience is going to be different of A&E. And part of our role, when we're really tuned in as healthcare professionals, is to get a feel for what your main worry is and make sure you don't leave us without that bit of your worry being alleviated. And it's also to recognise what I see and what my team see every day might not feel like an emergency to us, because we obviously see a lot. But we have to remember that for that family, that parent, this is an emergency. This might be the most challenging day of their life. And you're coming from that level. And our role is to be calm, professional, competent, to allow you to feel safe in our care. So you'll come through to us, we'll triage you. Okay, we aim to triage within a 15-minute time scale, but we get a lot of arrivals at once. So sometimes it can slip a bit, but we try within 15 minutes. And we're going to triage you, which is a sorting. So we're doing that to find the sickest and treat them first, and to start care for the other patients. So that might be an X-ray for your limb injury. It might be pain relief while you wait for the doctor. It might be starting some fluid challenges if a child is a bit dehydrated. And then we prioritise you into a queue for the emergency doctor. So on an ideal journey, you're going to meet a nurse at the streaming window, a nurse at triage, and then you're going to meet a doctor to do an examination and assessment, try and identify a diagnosis. And that's where the pathway changes. Most children go home. That's the level that we tend to work at with children. But there's always a kind of average rate of admission. Probably about a quarter of the tendencies might need further care within the hospital. And further care within the hospital is normally on the acute paediatric ward. And that could be because your child has got a medical need. So by medical need, we're talking about things like gastroenteritis, breathing difficulties with bronchiolitis, illness, etc. Or your child might have a surgical need. So the typical one that people hear a lot is appendicitis. We hear it a lot in children.
Mhm.
You might have an orthopedic requirement. So you might have a broken bone that's so nastily broken that it's not just a plaster, it needs a little operation. So we might admit you to the ward for an operation.
Oh,
So there's a range of admissions, but then equally, we'll do our best to get the child home. If the child is well enough to go home and can be managed appropriately with home care with our advice,
mhm.
then we will support that, because we know that the home environment of nurture is one of the most familiar for the child. So is their place of normality.
Mhm.
Um, there's so many pathways through emergency care. And the unique thing about children's A&E is all of the minor injury, all of the illness and everything is in one bit. Whereas in the adult side, because of volumes of scale, the adult minor injuries is slightly separate. But all the injuries and illness are all together in children's A&E.
Mhm.
But that works because what's important is the child gets paediatric level care.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. You just mentioned about um, acute pediatric service. So, what's the difference between the pediatric A&E, the pediatric assessment unit, and pediatric OPD?
Yeah, very different, in fact, really, really different. So our specialism in emergency care is that you're an unexpected attendance, you arrive, it's your decision that I'm unwell, my child's unwell, I need emergency care. If you look at an outpatients department, so children's outpatients, that's planned care to see paediatricians, and the ownership of that planned care and that referral pathway is your family GP. So if your GP feels that they've done everything they can for you, but you need a specialist opinion, it's them to make that referral to the paediatrician. The paediatric assessment unit, or the paediatric acute ward, which people will probably know as the children's ward,
Mhm.
is is exactly that. It's a place for admissions for acute illness, and those admissions could come from the A&E pathway, or it could come from a GP referral directly into their assessment unit. But they also do some planned activity, and the planned activity is around day surgery. Um, so they do a lot of day surgery around ear, nose, and throat issues, grommets, tonsils, adenoids, and a lot of families will have heard those phrases before. Um, so that's those three different services. But
Mhm.
we're very much entirely the unplanned care. We're not an appointment system in A&E at all.
So, you did mention that sometimes you pass uh, patients, peds A&E patients to acute pediatric
Mm,
services. So they're completely different department than when you think that, "No,
mm.
this is no longer an emergency and now need to be treated by."
Yeah, no longer an emergency perhaps isn't right. Um, we treat emergencies, and ideally by treating emergencies, we stabilise.
Mhm.
Um, if we've stabilised enough for a discharge home,
Mhm.
then that's our responsibility as an emergency department to do that safe discharge, and we'll give you safety net advice. We've got a range of advice leaflets. But if we've recognised, and if you imagine emergency care is a big sieve in a way,
Mhm.
and we're sorting things out, and at that front door, we've got to work out the big sick
Mhm.
and the little sick and the ones in between. The little sick, so
Uh-huh.
not very sick, are normally quite obvious and normally quite safe to go home. The big sick are also incredibly obvious. That's a very poorly child, and we'll treat immediately as
Mhm.
an absolute emergency. The children are in the middle are the ones that need that kind of sieve approach. And we do that through observation, investigation. So if within our short window in A&E we can reach a diagnosis, see some of the observations improve and the child improve, and give a plan of care such as antibiotics or something and home, that's fine. But if with our short observation period, the diagnosis needs more workup or investigation, or we can predict the course of the illness is longer,
Mhm.
then we'll admit. And that's the safety that you'll be under the care of paediatrics on the ward. And then we hand care over.
Perfect, perfect. Um, I know you are. Let's move a topic slightly bit away from the PJ&E. I know you are raising money for PJ&E for different charitable events and activities, which is also health related. I know you are a very
Mm,
healthy person. You
mm.
bike, you jog, you run, you do all those things, and that's one of the reasons you're so thin. I know I was there and I was losing weight, and now I've literally become a blob again.
Oh dear.
So tell us about this. Why do we need? First of all, why do we need to raise money for PJ&E?
Exactly, and it's a really valid question. Why are you raising money for an NHS-funded organisation? And I want to start first by saying I've just told you about the journey, but I haven't told you about the environment. And the environment for a child is so incredibly important. So I know that a child will settle and be calmer with different interaction from staff, but also with different distractions. So I want to highlight to you that a normal NHS provision is an architect designed building,
Mhm,
but it might be a colour theme. It might be white walls and a feature wall, a bit like you've got features in your logos here.
mhm,
And interestingly, I think green is on our palette for the emergency department. So um, nice and cohesive there. But it doesn't give you the nice to have. NHS funding gives you the essential. It gives you enough to do the job. We want to make this children's journey the best experience for all children of all ages. So we need to put things into our emergency department that put that child at ease. But we're not only putting the child at ease, we're putting the family at ease as well. So if I bring you into an emergency department and you've got a toddler and you've got to sit on a hard chair and there's nothing to entertain that toddler, I've suddenly got a stressed toddler, but also a very stressed parent. Your waiting time is going to feel 10 times longer. Everyone's tolerance levels are going to decrease and the experience is going to be negative or not as positive, shall we say. So I am fundraising and I'm fundraising for what I think are essential items for the environment for children's emergency care, but they wouldn't come under a normal NHS brief.
mhm.
So yes, I am doing a lot of activities and I've no idea how I fit these in, but I've somehow created a sponsored staggered triathlon. So I can tell you about that. So in the month of May, I started my triathlon and training for this, I hadn't done any running. I hate running. It feels slow. I'm a cyclist by heart. And I trained and I trained and I mapped my runs on Strava and my Just Giving page and I completed the Flitwick 10K run in May. And I managed to smash my time. I reduced it by 4 minutes on my personal best. Now, I'm not an athlete, I'm not an Olympic, but I got 54 minutes and I was elated. And the fundraising really picked up. So then we've created a staggered triathlon. So in May, myself and some colleagues will complete a 100-kilometre bike ride from the hospital into the Chiltern Hills as a loop.
Mhm.
A big distance. We've never ridden that distance before. Some of the team had never been avid cyclists. I certainly was a coffee and cake cyclist before this. So riding in a group is new to me, but also doing the distance is new.
Mhm.
And then the final thing, which I'm so delighted to have support with, is the swim element of the triathlon. That's going to be on the 25th of June. And I'm absolutely delighted that Active Luton have got behind me. They've organised for Inspire to give us a lane of the Olympic pool on that Sunday morning. And we are going to complete 75 lengths, or I am, 75 lengths of the Olympic pool, which ties in with the NHS birthday, 25 years at the start of July.
We were there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the time has passed really quickly.
It
We just have
has.
a few seconds before we head towards the break. So when we come back from the break, I will definitely want to hear more about this journey and how
Yeah.
you are achieving it and the environment, the money you are raising for. So we need to know more about that. But we will go back onto the main topic of the journey of the Paediatric, which is stay tuned. We will be right back after this very, very short messages.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and surrounding areas, it is now time for Salat al-Asr.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज असर का वक्त हुआ चाहता है।
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 72 110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk. Allah Akbar, Allah أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على حي على حي على حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم هذه الدعوة الصلاة القائمة آت محمد والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة ابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Would you like to sponsor the Azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Any health advice given, whether general diet, physical or spiritual, is general only and must be verified by a doctor. If you need medical advice, please consult a doctor.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all our listeners and viewers. I'm Fahad Matin, your host for today, and we are talking about a journey to Pete's A&E. Shall I say to A&E? With our very lovely host, with our very lovely guest today, Ben Small. He's the matron at Luton Hospital. Good evening.
Evening, Fahad, and don't make me the host.
I love you to be the host. This program is broadcasting live from the studios of Inspire FM today on 4th of May, 2023. And the time just past 6:30. We are, as I said, live from the studios of Inspire FM for our lovely people in Luton and all the surrounding areas of Luton, like Dunstable, Harpeth, and Bedford. And our positive airways are reaching all our listeners who are listening us on Inspire FM radio app, and definitely viewing us live on Facebook Live and YouTube channels. Good evening and welcome back. Before we went on the break, we were talking with Ben about his charitable effort. I know he's a lovely, lovely guy. He has an experience of 20 years of A&E medicine as a nurse and leading the A&E department as a matron at the moment. Luton Dunstable Hospital's A&E department, and he is also investing his own time and efforts to raise money for the pediatric A&E sides of the Luton Dunstable Hospital, and he was explaining us about his journey when I rudely interrupted him to say that we are going on a break. So Ben, if please excuse my and accept my apologies before we went on break. But yeah, please do continue as you were explaining us about the triathlon and the money you're raising for the Peds A&E.
The main thing is that we're doing this triathlon to make sure that we really push ourselves as a team and show that we're going to go the extra mile to fundraise for children's A&E. But what's important is that we line this up with the child's journey through A&E. So I just want to tell you some of the things that we're fundraising for, and there's quite a list, but I require your imagination maybe, but we're raising money for something called sky panels. So often in A&E departments, we're a windowless environment. We're not blessed with great views. But what we envisage is that when the child walks into A&E, they'll be able to look up and there'll be panels on the ceiling that will be images. So there might be an aeroplane, there might be a hot air balloon, there might be some birds. But these are things that your child can point at. And if your child is distressed about coming in, we can use them as part of the journey to help them come into the department. They're not cheap. They're high spec, they're fit for purpose, and it's really important that we create that journey through the main children's A&E. We're going to be really privileged as well in the new build to have a children's mental health room in the children's A&E as well as the adult side. And it is sad that we need that. Obviously, I'd rather every person was happy and didn't need that kind of room. But if that person in distress does need a safe room, it also needs to be a nice environment. So we will be looking to make sure that's a safe room, but with a bespoke wall mural that is tuned into children. Now we have a massive challenge and we're fundraising for that as well, but you've got to somehow get that mural to work for all age groups. So we're choosing very, very wisely. For some of the younger children, we've spec'd up some lovely LED 3D light that can go in some of the treatment cubicles. So instead of being in a white box with a curtain at the front, you've got a lovely light that can be turned on. We've already got one, but we're speccing it as a better model. We're looking for a projector so that we can project images for distraction onto the ceiling, so providing some sensory support to children. There's also within our list, there is a lot around distraction and environment, but there's also some bits for our high dependency room. So we're going to benefit from having a highly spec'd high dependency room in there. And there's some kit that allows docking of our emergency infusion pumps in an organised manner. So the normal method would be on a drip stand with power cables, but this is a bespoke docking unit that will hold them and organise your infusions if you are having to run a number on one child. So there's so many things. And one of the other really nice things is a projector that comes from the ceiling, projects an image onto the floor which the child can interact with.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important to me because toys are great, but they also fill me with fear because in a really busy A&E department, it's very hard to stop one child sharing with another. And I don't think you want your child sharing bugs.
Definitely not.
If I can get a projector in that engages on the floor, they use their feet, to interact, not their hands, and not sharing toys, that is better from an infection control point of view. So these are the highest spec things that we really want to get in. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm going to do these 3 months of activities and see how I go.
How much you have raised so far?
So it's in the early days. I've got 2 little funds set up. So I've got about 500 in Just Giving and about 200 on the Facebook feed.
Mm-hmm.
I would like, on my personal challenge with the triathlon, to get to £5,000.
Mm-hmm.
The overarching fund is in excess of 23,000 to deliver on.
Yeah, I was thinking of.
Yeah. So yeah, it's anything you buy for healthcare is not cheap. It's got to be the right standard, the right spec. It's got to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the early days. I'm trying to gather momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And if you aren't in a position to donate, because times are hard,
mm-hmm.
like a YouTuber would say, just, what do they say? Like and subscribe
mm-hmm.
and share, things like that. I'm not cool like a YouTuber, but just share it. If you see my feed, just share it.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see if we can get these funds raised. What I'd like to see is that we open the new Peds A&E with everything in,
mm-hmm.
rather than having to dribble it in at a later date.
Okay. And how long the new Peds A&E will going to start?
So we're just pending an accurate date, and I wouldn't like to portray a date and then for us not to meet it. But I think anyone that's passed in the hospital will see that the new part of the building is really starting to look a bit more finished in some areas.
Mm-hmm.
There is a whole project taking us to 2024, but I can see us realising the dream of having this bigger children's A&E quite soon.
Definitely, and we will definitely look forward for something like that. And yeah, I know it's not easy to raise money, especially when we are talking about that much money. And will you get some support from the A&E, from the hospital charitable side?
Yeah, so I'm really kindly supported by Bedfordshire Hospital's charity. So they support me with putting this event together, as well as Active Luton, who are supporting me with the swim. So it's really nice, the support that I've got. And I've got support of colleagues as well. So any colleagues that have wanted to join me on this triathlon, they don't have to do the whole thing, but this is about doing things together. So I will achieve these headline events. If my colleagues do half, that's fine. They can do sponsorship for a component part.
Mm-hmm.
And we think in the swim, we'll have other team members doing it as a relay.
Yes,
so it should be fun.
That will be fun. That will be fun. And I will be coming and cheering for you from the gallery.
Cheer from the side, or you can jump in as well.
Oh, I'm not a very good swimmer. I am a swimmer, but I'm not a very good swimmer. And I really do not want to splash all the water out when I take a dive in. So, yeah, we have to take care of that side as well. As soon as I go in, the water comes out.
Then I can walk it.
Yes. That I can definitely. So, in terms of when we talk about the journey of A&E itself, on average, do you know how many children is normally seen in a Peds A&E in a year?
We're a department of growth, and any figure that I give today will change by tomorrow. But broadly speaking, the national average is to see about a quarter of your attendances are children, and the rest are adult. And as an emergency department, we see in excess of 100,000 people a year through our doors. So as a very crude figure, and it is just that's around 25,000 children a year, and it tends to be on the rise.
Yes, indeed, and to be honest, I must say, especially with our GPs nowadays, sometimes because they do not have an appointment with children's, if the parents are a bit anxious, they try to guide them towards the.
Yeah, and that's why it's important that when people look for health advice for their child, they look at the whole offering. The literature is far better than I could explain on this show, but it will traffic light symptoms to look for in your child and suggestions of where to go. And I do come back to that gut feeling a parent will have, because sometimes you don't know what's wrong, but your gut says something's not right. And sometimes I will say as a nurse, we have to listen to that, mum or dad. Your gut's saying something, so we're going to look. And also, we're an area of growth. You've only got to look around Luton at the housing development, Houghton Regis side. So we're only going to get bigger based on population as well.
Exactly, and Luton, there is a very young population as well. We have more children in Luton than in Bedfordshire.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's growing with every single day. I absolutely sometimes amazed the amount of the young generation we have, or the young blood we have in Luton.
Well, we'll see that as a good thing for the future of the economy and the future of the town, but it will definitely keep us busy as well. The other thing about children is they are good at getting into bumps and scrapes. And I mentioned we do accidents as well as medical emergencies. And I will have seen a lot of the children of this area with bumps on their head needing a wound glue, limb injuries needing a plaster. It's par for the course, isn't it? We can't wrap our children in cotton wool all the time. Exactly. We can try, listeners, we can try and keep them as safe as possible. But childhood is one of adventure, isn't it?
Oh yes, and especially if they're going to the school, or if they're going to the park, they'll run around. They will bump heads. They will bump heads. They will fall. They will stand up. They will go back again.
Yeah, and they will do things just outside the reach of the parent, and you will see it in slow motion, and there'll be nothing you can do at that time.
Exactly.
And we've all been there, I think.
Absolutely agree on that. So, and if I say, what are the common problems of children you normally see who normally comes to the PEDS?
We're quite seasonal, actually. If I looked at illness first of all, children's medicine sees a lot of two illnesses over the winter and the colder months. One is bronchiolitis and the other is gastroenteritis. So bronchiolitis is typically in the younger children, and it's a viral illness. It can present with a wheeze, difficulty in breathing, children off their feet. And then gastroenteritis, I don't think I need to go into the details of that on the show. People might be eating their dinner. It's a stomach bug, okay? But what's important in both of those conditions, children need to oxygenate well, so they need to breathe well, and children need to hydrate well, so they need to drink well and keep the fluid in. They're the things that make children poorly. And that's a big, big part of our winter work. When the sun comes out a bit, we're going to see people in parks, bank holiday weekend, if the weather's good, bouncy castles, trampolines, that's your injuries. And that makes that more common. So although we talk about emergency care as being unpredictable, there's some predictable bits in there that we can see from a trend point of view. Something we see, for example, I think a lot of people locally go on holiday away from here because in the summer months our attendances drop. So my assumption is people have gone on a nice holiday and somewhere is busy. But when children return to school, start sharing the bugs again, we know that the bugs are going to share, and we're going to see a little bit of a peak in the common bugs that are shared. The children pick up bugs, they build up some resilience. It's a par for the course in childhood, and we're there for when that bug is a bit more nasty than the common ones.
You mentioned about the scrapes and the injury itself. So what are the common non-accidental injuries in children you normally see?
So you mean like the accidental injuries, so the common accidental injuries?
Yes, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah. So definitely bumped heads in playgrounds, play fighting at home. Definitely we get kind of arm injuries from monkey bars typically when the child is hanging, you're hanging at the park, you're trying to go along and you drop off, and quite often it gives the arm a yank on the way down. Trampolines on their own with a net around, I don't think are necessarily the cause of the injury. But if you put two children on at once, that propels them either towards each other or off the trampoline. So it's more than one on the trampoline at once is a real. You do know that teenagers, particularly getting into sport more seriously at school, you'll start to get the knee injuries, the ankle injuries, from the football games, the hockey, etc., and some of the concussions from some of the rugby games.
Ouch.
But I guess what I have to say is what's common to me, fortunately, in most people's lives doesn't happen much at all. So although it might feel common to me, you might need us once in your child's, childhood, or you might need us a couple of times. So I don't want to say this and scare people away from sport. There's ways to keep safe, aren't there?
Yes, indeed, and definitely, necessary protective care is most important part. Definitely,
Yeah. Without a
especially
doubt.
if you're going for if you're sending your child to something like a karate class or mixed martial art classes and so forth. Definitely,
A padded floor, run away would be my solution. I don't want to be thrown on the floor, but some people will do self-defense. Yeah.
exactly, and definitely, as you mentioned about the parks and the weather itself. There's so is there any specific times of peaks and troughs you have seen children's came to the A&E side?
I think you can see a trend, and you can see a trend that typically children sleep at night, and that's what children should be doing. So I would expect our activity to decrease in the early hours of the morning once we've cleared our evening backlog. And typically in the morning, the injuries haven't happened yet. So we just have a little bit of a lull until that kind of pick up, probably mid-morning through to lunch, and then it's full on through till midnight. So the kind of lower times are probably the early hours when, like I say, in bed, resting, recuperating.
So when we talk about the condition itself, so which conditions are classed as the pediatric emergency itself?
So I don't know that you would always class them as an emergency, because sometimes you're looking at symptoms, because what we're not really asking parents to do is diagnose. And I come back to gut as well. If your child's not right, then they're your red flags. And if anyone looks in their red book, which will have been given by the health visitor, or looks through the 111 website, you'll see the red flags for children's illness. We're looking for red flags around a child that's not responding normally, is having extreme breathing difficulty, any child that's actively seizing. They're red flags, and it's less about diagnosis, it's more about presentation. Of course, I've talked about injuries quite a lot, and you can have an injury that it's a painful arm and it looks entirely normal. Fine, that's okay. You can tell it looks quite normal. You'll bring that child in if they need it, when they need it. But you can have a broken bone that is called a gross deformity. And we want to see that straight away. We don't want the child in that pain. We want to splint it. We want to get the correct treatment on so that can be straightened out and fixed so that the bones heal nicely. And you will know as a parent, if your child has got a deformed shaped limb after an injury, you will know that's an immediate, and you won't need to think twice.
So it's more like a common sense approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen to those around you as well. Sometimes you'll have been 4 days looking after a child and you'll have been with them all that time. Sometimes you need that relative defense check, or you need to pick up the phone to 111. I'm worried, but I don't know why. But you will definitely know when you're really worried. The child that, like I said, is drowsy, not responding well, you'll definitely know to get immediate help.
Exactly. So in the beginning, when we're talking about the journey of the peds A&E, you said sometimes the because of the times which are sometimes parents are more anxious and so forth. What are the basic advice you can give to those parents, or how to calm their kids down?
Yeah, so a calm parent will typically have a calm child. That's one thing. And sometimes we've got to identify what's making the parent anxious. And it's probably fear or worry for their child. And our approach is what's going to help you. If we approach the situation calmly, but we give you confidence that we're competent and we're recognizing your concern, then hopefully we can allay some of your fears, and then you're better placed to calm the child. But we're here, and if you're in with us and you just can't calm them down, we're here. We can call time out, ask us for help. I just need a minute. Yeah, we'll help. We're here for that. We don't want to see you struggle. It's also, you are tuned into your child. If you know what's triggering your child, if you know it's the amount of people around them, it's a loud noise, it's seeing something, well, tell us. We might not have an immediate fix for everything, but we might be able to have a solution of somewhere slightly different to wait or something. Children's care is family-centered care, and every bit that you do in your children's nurse training is around the family-centered approach. So if we're not doing that, then we're missing a trick. So we get the child, they're registered on the screen, but we get the whole package, and that's the parents and family as well.
Wow. That note, I must say, wow, the time has passed so quickly. We just have 4 minutes before the end of the show. So I just want you to have a quick recap, first of all, and give us a bit of your trial Matron and how you like us to help you, and then a positive message. So start with a quick recap.
Yeah, so I'm running, I'm cycling, and I'm swimming. I've done the run coming up. I will be posting this on Facebook. It will be retweeted and etc. by the hospital. So if you see my messages, see my Just Giving page, if you're able to donate, it's really, really appreciated. If you're not, just share it, like it, repost it, so that I can get the message out there and help us raise some money. This is about the journey, this is about the environment, and this is about being the best that we can be, and tooling our team up to do that. I want my team to have the best resources around them. The positive message is, if we do that, we're going to have a really, really great children's A&E.
Exactly.
And we're going to be well prepared for our community, and it is our community. I'm Luton born and bred. We're here for the community, and we want to be here when you need us.
So this new A&E, is it Pete's A&E? Is it slightly bigger than your current one?
Yeah, it's actually quite a lot bigger, and I wish I could give square meter footage, etc. I'm hoping I can get away with saying quite a lot bigger. It's got at least more cubicles. It's got a dedicated high dependency room. It's got a dedicated mental health room, which we didn't have before. We've got a bespoke bed area for minor treatments, which will do limb support and recline and all fancy positions. So not everyone has to have a trolley. So that will allow our nurse practitioners to work in a really nice area as well. It's got the biggest triage room I've seen for ages. It's going to make the old one look like a cupboard. We just have to fill it with the passion for emergency care now, and fill it with the staff as well.
Exactly.
And that's a big part of my job.
Exactly, because yes, sometimes it's a challenging, it's a challenge, or it's a known, I must say.
Yeah,
especially rostering all the staff, especially with this day and age and the strikes going on and so forth.
Absolutely, but we're here to do that, and that's what we're devoted to.
I must say that is a very exciting place to work, and to be honest, whenever I walked personally into the A&E as a worker, it is always a buzzing environment. In the sense, always you see people busy, you see people supporting the parents and the kids and so forth. So a quick advice in terms of what are the common things you may think that your child can come to, you can bring your child to A&E and so forth.
I've mentioned a few times gut feeling, and if you're worried, then we're worried. I've also mentioned, obviously, using 111 for telephone advice, but essentially the red flags, thinking about your drowsy child, your fitting child, your breathing distress, thinking about emergency care in that instance. There is a fantastic healthcare provision out there, and that is the aim of urgent care, to put it everywhere so that it's accessible. So you might arrive and we might stream you to the urgent GP service if you don't need absolute emergency care on the day. But I do urge parents to look in their red book. I know that within that book is a kind of traffic light signs to look for. And it's really good resource to look at. Put it on your fridge or something because you don't know when you need it.
Exactly.
So have it there ready for when you do. And have a look at the 111 website.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ben, for
Thank
coming
you.
here. Thank you so much for sharing us with your thoughts and your efforts. And thank you so much for being part of this one. I know it's your debut on the radio, but definitely we will be calling you again soon, inshallah.
Fahad, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And that's all for us today, guys. Stay tuned. We will be back after more of these shows next week and the week following. Stay tuned, and we will be back in inshallah with a brand new episode. Stay safe. Remember us in your du'as and enjoy the bank holiday weekend. Assalamu alaikum.